Bienvenidos a esta presentación. This presentation will discuss a sequence of tenses, that is to say, what tense and mood do you need to use in the dependent clause of a sentence. If we take a look at this example, mi primo quiso que yo blank temprano, it's telling us that my cousin wanted me to arrive early. We're going to use the verb llegar in this sentence. But what tense or what mood do we use in the dependent clause where we're missing our verb? The first step is to take a look at the verb of the dependent clause. The main clause verb in this case is the verb quiso. The next thing to do is to figure out if this verb is a subjunctive trigger. Do we need the subjunctive mood in the back half of the sentence? As a reminder, the subjunctive triggers can be verbs of doubt, verbs of emotion, verbs of influence. Impersonal expressions, hypothetical, situations and negative reference, and all of those are followed with que. Escapa, matched, and shaped are just some tricks to remember the different adverbial clauses that require the subjunctive. And si clauses, or if sentences. If I won the lottery, I would do something. If it is not a subjunctive trigger, and the verb is in the present tense, then your dependent clause is going to be in the present tense, the future, the conditional, the preterite, or the imperfect, the indicative mood. If it's in the past tense, then you have a choice of preterite or imperfect, also part of the indicative mood. If your verb of the main clause is a subjunctive trigger, and it's in the present tense, it's in the future, it's a command, or it's in the present perfect, then you're going to use the subjunctive mood, specifically the present subjunctive. The perfect subjunctive can also be used, but for our purposes, we're going to work with the present subjunctive in this case. If the independent clause verb is in the preterite tense, the imperfect tense, the conditional, or the pluperfect, you're going to use the imperfect subjunctive, or the past subjunctive, as it's sometimes called. The pluperfect subjunctive can also be used, but we're going to again just work with either the present subjunctive or the imperfect subjunctive. So if we take a look at our example sentence, mi primo quiso que yo, llegar is our verb temprano. Quiso, is that a subjunctive trigger? Well, quiso comes from the verb querer, which means to want. My cousin wants me to do something. So that is a verb of influence, and we do have que. So my cousin wanting me to do something is a subjunctive trigger. So we need the subjunctive. But do we need the present subjunctive or the imperfect subjunctive? In this case, since quiso is in the preterite tense, the imperfect subjunctive is required. Mi primo quiso que yo llegara temprano. The only way to do this correctly is just to dive right in and do a lot of practice sentences. Here are some examples. Number 1. Mi abuela dudaba que yo blank el pastel a tiempo para la fiesta. My grandmother doubted that I would finish the cake on time for the party. This requires the imperfect subjunctive, terminara. The reason is that the fact that the grandmother is expressing doubt triggers a subjunctive, and since dudaba is in the imperfect tense, it means that it is the imperfect subjunctive is required. Estoy muy contento que usted venga a nuestra reunión. I am very happy that you will come to our meeting. This is a verb of emotion with que, which requires a subjunctive. Estoy is in the present tense, so we need the present subjunctive. Es cierto que Rafaela tiene 40 años. Since it is true that Rafaela is 40 years old, there is no doubt This is simply a statement which requires the present tense indicative form of tener. Mañana iré a la iglesia contigo. Tomorrow I will go to church with you. This requires a future tense as there is no subjunctive trigger and is just stating a fact, which is why the indicative, the future of the indicative is needed. Yo buscaba a una persona que cocinara una paella como mi mamá. In this sentence, the imperfect subjunctive is required because I was looking for a person that could cook as well as my mom, and since I did not know if that person existed, that casts doubt on the situation, which requires a subjunctive. And since buscaba is in the imperfect subjunctive, since buscaba is in the imperfect subjunctive is necessary. Me afeito antes de que tú te duches requires the present tense subjunctive. Antes de que, in this situation, this adverbial clause requires a subjunctive. And since me afeito is in the present tense, the present subjunctive is needed. Era necesario que ellos jugaran un partido perfecto. It was necessary is an impersonal expression which requires a subjunctive, and since era is in the imperfect tense, one of the past tenses, the imperfect subjunctive is necessary. Era cierto que Carmen lo hizo or hacía bien. It is certain that Carmen did it well. Since there is certainty, there's no doubt. The subjunctive is not required. And we don't quite know if we need the imperfect or the preterite based on the situation. So either one can be used here. Yo compraría un coche nuevo si recibiera el puesto. I would buy a new car if I receive the new position at work. This is a C clause. If something were to happen, something else would happen. And the C part of any C sentences are always require the imperfect subjunctive, recibiera. And finally, number 10, mi profesor me mandó que fuera a la oficina. My professor demanded that I go to the office. This is a command which requires a subjunctive, and since he commanded me, mandó is in the preterite tense, the imperfect or past subjunctive is required. As I said earlier, the sequence of tenses can be tricky and a little overwhelming actually. It just requires a lot of practice. I hope this video was helpful. Gracias por ver el video y te deseo mucho éxito.